All right, finna go to get a rockin'. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of a Champ podcast, episode number 92, talking about my thoughts specifically on cancel culture. So, if you have any specific opinions regarding cancel culture, I want to know your guys' thoughts just so I can, view and observe other people's thoughts about this as well. So, like I said, appreciate y'all for stopping by. Like I said, make sure you go and leave a comment if you're in here for sure. All right, so we finna go and get rock. Give me 1 second though. Yeah, one of the things I want to mention before this, make sure you guys go ahead and follow me on TikTok, just Life of Champ Podcast on TikTok, as well as make sure you go ahead and leave a like on my YouTube Shorts as well. I'm posting roughly about 20 something a week. So on TikTok, look out for that, as well as, like I mentioned, on the YouTube Shorts as well. So if you cannot watch a full podcast or do not want to watch a full podcast, but you still want to get the little nuggets of game, make sure you go ahead and tap in with the YouTube Shorts as well as the TikToks as well. Also, I'm going to be posting maybe about 3 or 4 8 to 10 minute long videos. So, like I said, if you can't get a full podcast, but you want to watch something longer than the clips, I'll have that available as well. Yeah, for sure. Also, if there's a specific podcast that you want to have, if you want to see clips for, make sure you go ahead and let me know as well. All right, yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll get it rocking. Okay, let's see what KJ has to say. He said, I think that everyone has an opinion and should voice that opinion, even though some people might not be the smartest or most persuasive when it comes with speech. I believe that everyone should. Okay, that's that's interesting. That's interesting for sure. Okay, so that's okay. We'll start with that. Okay, all right. Chance to speak out because things. Okay. Let me get it. Let me get into the pod. All right. So the first thing when it comes to cancel culture and kind of giving your thoughts, right? And this is what I would deem to be a interesting way to look at it. So all the things that I'm going to prompt you guys with, as far as the beginning of a thought, I want you guys just to observe these few things. Okay. First thing is I want you to observe the previous cancellations and ask yourself the question as if they worked or not, right? So observe them and observe the uniqueness that each specific individual has that led them to be canceled, right? So I feel like everyone should learn specifically something from each individual and then try to take that. Let's just say you're a person who makes content as well, right? You should take everything, especially with those people, and you should take it and apply it to your own platform, right? If you have a platform and you do want to be canceled for something that you say, observe certain things that that person didn't stay away from, and remove that or alter it a specific way, and cater your message a specific way in order to avoid that potential from happening. Right? Ideally, that's not the ideal thing you want to do when it comes to, like I said, having a voice is to be canceled. So, to avoid that, like I said, pay attention specifically to what the people that got canceled didn't do. Right? Yeah, and ask yourself the question: why did they get canceled? Right? I feel like every single person kind of gets canceled for a different reason. Right? And also with this is their true validity behind the cancellation. Right? Do they truly believe what they said? And also with that, I want to kind of throw in this element of understanding that there's some ideas that people maybe not they maybe not have recognized that it would have that much of an impact, right? So like let's just say for example, you have an opinion and a lot of people disagreed with that opinion and it led to you getting canceled, right? From that position that you're in, right? But you're still a person at the end of the day, right? And you might have learned something from that experience. Now, do you deserve a second chance, right? That's something that you also got to take into account as well. I feel like with this cancellation, I feel like we really lost the true art of forgiveness, and that is part of being a human being in general. Is just understanding that we're all going to make mistakes. We're not always going to say the right things. We're not always going to have the right opinions that the most people are going to agree with. But that is what makes us human at the end of the day. And as time passes, we change over time. We aren't the same person we were a year ago, or 2 years ago, or even maybe even a few months ago. And with that being said, I feel like a lot of people they really don't take that into account. Let's just say there's something that happened 8 years ago, and let's just say some. I'm gonna use an example. Right? I'm gonna use an example. A famous guy like let's just say like Joe Rogan. Let's just say 5 years ago something happened, and It's just now brought to society's attention right now, and it leads to him being canceled, right? This is obviously all make believe, but let's just say it happened, right? Do you think he's still that same person from 5 years ago, right? And how much validity should you be able to take from that thing that happened in the past, right? The media is so quick to, say that is that person, that is the exact way that they think right now, and that person that even though 5 years has passed should still be canceled for that reason, right? You got to understand how the media likes to spin narratives as well, right? That's another thing that you really need to take into account when it comes to cancellations and stuff like that. See how the media spins out, and one thing I want to say as well is you also need to know the true intention behind that person. Um, a lot of people they just hear what the media has to say and they just write the person off right then and there. They do not take the time to try to really analyze why that person got canceled, right? I feel like that's very interesting. And I'm not speaking specifically on one person. I'm speaking specifically on just everything in general, right? Just everything in general. I feel like that really needs to be analyzed specifically with all the people who have gotten canceled, right? There's something to learn from every single person for sure. Um, yeah, and yeah, I wanna say this again, right? Everybody's on the constant state of evolution, right? That is part of the human being in the human experience in general. So who's to say that person from 5 years ago, like I mentioned, is that same person that is right now, right? That's not the same thing. That's not the same thing. But yet, like I said, society likes to spin the narrative a certain way, saying, "Hey, that person is the same exact way," right? So you got to analyze these things. Also, one thing I want to mention as well, and I think this is very very important. And if you have a lack of understanding, but you still have an opinion, and you want to do more research on trying to have a more thorough opinion on whether you should, strongly believe so firmly in one belief or not, I would say with the people who have gotten canceled, also analyze specifically why their supporters support them so heavily, right? Why are they quick to defend them, right? I feel like a lot of people do not analyze those things, or they just don't care enough to truly analyze that, but they care enough to have an emotional reaction when it comes to why that person should have been canceled or why that person did get canceled, right? So yeah, you need to analyze all these things for sure, and and maybe they have commonalities between their supporters, right? I feel like that's something that you should definitely analyze for sure. Yeah, we got a lot of people in here. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Make sure to leave a comment if you are in here. Also, I do want to know your guys' specific thoughts on cancellation, on whether you think it should happen or not, and how do you think about society and how we went about it when it comes to people's cancellations as of recently. All right. Yeah, another question you want to ask yourself is, do you think this is something realistically going to be a thing of the future, right? I do believe that, or I believe and hope that this is something of the past, right? I feel like cancellations, they're not exactly healthy, and I do believe that there's going to be certain situations where somebody realistically needs to get removed. Now, those situations are very far and few between, right? And I do believe that when it comes to making the decision of who should be canceled and who shouldn't be canceled, right? That should be something that the people have a say in, not so much, um, not so much the people who whoever makes the decisions, right? Who we don't truly know who they are and their motives and their agenda that they have. I do believe that it should be a people's vote, right? The people who, let's just say, for example, somebody got canceled on Instagram or something like that, right? They got removed, whatever, right? And that person is big, and that person also has a big following as well. I do believe that it should be the people's option, right? It should be a poll or something that people can contribute to if they would like. Um, but that is going to make a well informed decision of what the people and the masses want, right? And I feel like that would be a lot more of an ideal way to go about certain situations when it came to me observing the past and how the past cancellations have worked. I do believe that that would be way more efficient and way more effective when it comes to seeing if somebody should be canceled or not, right? Also, like I said, evaluating the true motives behind that person. Are they truly an evil person? Do they truly have bad intentions? And if they do, you act accordingly. And if they don't, then maybe you're missing something. Maybe you're not missing something, but there could be something you're potentially missing. Like I said, if you're in here, like I said, I want to know your opinions specifically on cancel culture. So make sure to go and leave a comment on that for sure. All right. People could change over time, and I think they have another chance because they could have changed their mindset and evolved so they even have better points than they did 5 years ago. What if that person was trying to tell the truth and people sometimes are too sensitive these days, which is why You don't judge and hop on the media and everything. Exactly. Right. And I feel like people who just believe everything they're told is that just goes to show their lack of, analytical thinking, right? Critical thinking. It's obviously flawed. And yeah, you cannot believe everything the media tells you. You cannot. With all the things that have happened within the last 3 to 5 years, right? You need to be at least a little skeptical of what some of the media tells you, right? And if you're not, then truly I do not think you are doing enough thinking, right? I truly believe that you are an NPC. You're truly believing everything that you're told, and you shouldn't be believing everything that you're told. Um, well, yeah, that's something that I will say for sure. All right. Yeah, with the cancel culture as well, right? And he brought up a good point. KJ brought up a good point. Um, People are very very sensitive nowadays. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that, right? And not everybody can have an opinion and say the right thing always. This is something that I mentioned time and time again when it came to cancel culture. And I said it on previous podcasts, but not everybody can have an opinion and say the right thing always, right? And you shouldn't expect to agree with anybody on any platform about anything, right? About everything, rather. And that is just a part of life in general. So I don't understand why people, they have a disagreement on somebody's point, one point out of all the points in life, right? And they say, hey, I don't really like that person, right? Do you truly know that person? For the most part, you don't. Um, but yeah, you just need to do the thinking, right? That's all that matters. Give me one second. Hold up. All right, he said, truth mixed with lies with the media, isn't it? Yes, that's pretty much what it is. Something is very wrong with our world, isn't it? Yes, I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. That's exactly my viewpoint, right? Like so you got to be thinking. You got to be thinking like that for sure. And if you're not thinking like that, then I truly believe that there's a fundamental problem within the way that you think. That's me personally. Um, Another thing with cancel culture as well, and this is something that I've observed with people who came out with certain controversies and things like that. I do believe that there's people who exist who are uncancelable, right? And one of these people I truly believe is uncancelable is going to be a person like Jordan Peterson or a person like Dave Chappelle, right? I do believe that these characters have built such a strong foundation of a fan base that they truly cannot be canceled. They could be deplatformed, but they could just find another platform and replace it very, very quickly. And I do believe that there's something to be said about those people as well, right? And also with people who do have platforms themselves, right? How do you become uncancelable? Observe what those people do and try to replicate it as best you possibly can. Um, yeah, but I do believe that there's people who are uncancelable. I feel like Joe Rogan is another person who is uncancelable. There has been controversies that came out with him, whether you agree or disagree. I do believe that his fan base is so huge that it really doesn't matter. I'm not to say Joe Rogan can't do no wrong. I'm saying he can do wrong, but there's going to be people who truly understand his character and truly understand how people can change over time, and that is just a part of life in general. So, um, you got to take that into account, and the people who are canceling people do not take that into account at all, for sure. Kayla said it's so ignorant to believe everything the media says. Exactly. My mother said my grandma would believe nowadays if the news. Exactly, exactly. And yeah, that kind of goes the conditioning. That kind of goes with the conditioning that the younger or the older generations have, right? And I feel like hopefully this generation that is coming right now, that is up and coming right now, truly has some difference when it comes to thinking and who they believe and who they trust and where they get their media from or where they get their opinions from and where they get the information from. I feel like that is going to say a lot about where the world goes, truly, right? Like you had mentioned, you can't believe everything the news tells you, right? The news doesn't even have your best interest in mind at all, right? And that is why I personally do not I do not hear the news, and if I do hear the news, it's with a grain of salt because I do believe that they're trying to persuade you a certain way. They're trying to make you left leaning or right leaning, and I don't like to get political on here, but I do believe that it's all a part of some type of agenda, right? It's all a part of some type of plan, and I do believe that, like I said, you should just take it with a grain of salt, right? The people are trying to persuade you a certain way. Um, Hopefully, this podcast is a little less biased than that, but like I said, I'm just promoting critical thinking, right? When it comes to anything, you should definitely be looking at it from two different point of views and not just one, and not just believing everything you're told. That's just my personal opinion. If you do like the content, make sure you go and leave a follow or subscribe, and also make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Yeah, I already said that. Yeah, for sure. Give me one second though. Also, I'm on TikTok as well. Life of Champ podcast on TikTok if you want the content in short form, as well as make sure you go ahead and leave a like on my YouTube Shorts as well. Appreciate it. Yeah, I want to kind of go back on that point a little bit. The people who are uncancelable, like I said, observe the type of characters that they are. They truly, and this is something that I observe, right? Like I said, the Dave Chappelles or the Joe Rogans of the world, or the people who just just are not cancelable. Like I said, they truly have a strong fan base, and like I said, they have a very thorough. Their fan base has a very thorough understanding of the character that person is, and that the character portrays, right? And I do believe that that is very, very important, very, very important, and something that's like I said, every content creator and every person should strive for is to be real, right? And a lot of people are not being real because they're afraid of people looking at them a certain way instead of just being exactly who they are, right? I feel like those people like Joe Rogan or like the Dave Chappelles of the world are truly being who they are, and people recognize that authenticity, and from there they can resonate with those people a little bit more. And like I said, let's just say something happens or a controversy comes out, and the media spins a narrative that isn't in favor of that person. I feel like a lot of people who are true supporters of those people kind of just look the other way and say, like I said, just take it with a grain of salt, right? And I feel like that's the best way you can kind of look at certain things as well. Why are people trying to get rid of? Yeah, like I said, that kind of goes with what I've been talking about, right? Um, like I said, evaluate the fan base. Evaluate the fan base. That's what I will say, right? If the fan base, truly doesn't have good intentions, then that'd be more of a just reason to get rid of those certain people. But if their fan base truly has the best intentions for society in general, then you kind of go about that a certain way, right? Or you don't cancel that person. Um, but yeah, for sure. Give me 1 second, fellas. Like I said, if you have any specific thoughts on cancellation, whether you agree or disagree with it, make sure you go and leave in the comments. All right. Yeah, and I want to reiterate this point just in case there's some new people, right? Who decides the cancellations? Truly, who does, right? Um, I do believe, and I will say this, and I haven't heard anybody say this personally. I do believe that we should have the people. We should have the people decide specifically who should get canceled or who should get canceled. So I do believe that social media's the platforms they're intelligent enough to have polls and have certain things like that, or whether people would like to or not like to give their opinion on if somebody should be canceled. But I do believe that that should be the people's decision. It shouldn't be somebody who's in control of a social media platform. And I would say that is probably going to be more idealistic way of thinking. And I do believe that there is some practicality behind it as well. I do believe it can be implemented. They've implemented other things, but I do believe that that's something that will be very, very important when it comes to the future and the way that people kind of see certain narratives and things like that. Yeah, for sure. Hold on, give me a second. Depends on the topic whether you cancel it or not, in the opinion of that person. Yeah, like I said, just let the people decide. Let the people decide. Truly, if everybody recognizes that this person is not of the best quality and doesn't have the best intentions in mind for the people that they're trying to reach out to, then of course that might be a person worth canceling, right? But I do believe that everybody has an opinion, and everybody should have an opinion, and I believe in free speech as well. And the second you start to limit that is the second you start to see people trying to control things, and I do believe that is not a great foundation to start from, for sure. Or rather, go along with, like people are going along with. Um, yeah, yeah, for sure. Like I said, you get into that very gray area when it comes to free speech, and it comes to the profits of people who are controlling the social media apps and things like that. And I do believe that if things like the recent things when it comes to cancellations continue, I do believe that people will look elsewhere and build platforms that are going to be a little less censored and a little bit more in favor of free speech. With that being said, if you're not on Rumble, that is something that I recommend, and I do believe that is going to be part of the new way. Just in case, right? That is going to be one of the most popular platforms if people get fed up with the bullshit when it comes to um, the media trying to control certain narratives and things like that, or the media trying to portray a certain person who isn't truly like that in a negative light. So yeah, if you don't know already, I'm on there as well. All my content's on there. So yeah, follow me on there. Like I said, Life of Champ podcast on there as well. So check that out. And if you don't know what Rumble is, like I said, hopefully I explained it. Like I said, it's more in favor of free speech, a little less censored. So yeah, give me 1 second. All right. Yeah, here's if there's one thing that I wish that this society would be right now, right? If there's something that I would wish, like I said, idealistic thinking, I wish people were more genuine. I really wish people were more genuine and not scared to say certain things, right? Um, that is something that I'm trying to build with this platform. I want to say the things that I want to say, right? And of course, I need to, cultivate my message a little bit more strategic because, to avoid certain things. But I do believe that there's going to be a lot of utility when it comes to people being super genuine, right? And I can recognize people when they're not being genuine, and I'm sure you watching this can also recognize people when they're not truly being genuine, or they truly do not believe the things that they say that they believe, right? And there's certain characters that exist that you know are in favor of the media platforms, and they, like I said, no, do not want to be canceled. They'll do everything that they can to not get canceled, and I do believe that is them complying with that, instead of fighting back and or pushing the boundary, is definitely not contributing to the most healthy society that possibly can be. But that is just my personal take on that for sure. Um, well, I try to be a genuine person. Trouble is free speech. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, it's a very gray area, and I do believe that it should be discussed, like I am doing right now. I feel like it's not being discussed enough, truly, and yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to do my part. I'm trying to do my part at the very least. At least have the conversation to be had. But yeah. Yeah, one thing I want to say as well is sadly, people are more drawn to negativity when it comes to certain things that the media puts out, but they do not show both sides, right? I truly believe that they do not show both sides. Let's just say something negative happens to a person, right? They get accused of something that they didn't do, right? And let's just say something comes out saying, "Hey, well, that thing that they were accused of isn't actually true." That the truth will be suppressed. It won't be as publicized as the allegation that was, right. And I do believe that is also hindering. And sadly, the people who are in control of the media and things like that, I feel like that is very very that's terrible. That's terrible. I feel like I wish it could be different, but I don't know exactly how it would be different. But I definitely wish it would be different for sure. GDP, appreciate you for stopping by, man. Um, but yeah, sadly, like I said, if it's negative, it's gonna get more clicks and more views. But if it's positive or going against a false claim, it's gonna get less press and less attention, which is just a sad reality of life that we're living in right now. Yeah, and with that being said as well, right? Let's just say when it comes to a person who has an unpopular opinion, I feel like ideas realistically shouldn't be suppressed, if they're not truly hindering to the well-being of society, right? With that being said, even if, like I said, if people do not agree with what you have to say, and people let you know in the comments that they don't agree with what you have to say, at the very least, it's something that can be learned from, right? Instead of just being, hey, get rid of this person, get rid of all the things that they're doing. I feel like I said, at the very least, it's something that can be learned from, whether it's what to do or what not to do, and how to kind of go about that situation the proper way. Um, but yeah, like I said, people are just scared and afraid to really express who they are and what their true opinions are. And not everybody's gonna have the most solid stance on things, right? And that is okay. That is simply okay. And people should want to be vulnerable enough to at least express the way that they think. And before that, actually doing the time to think about the certain things that you do want to speak on. But yeah, everybody should be willing to be challenged on their opinions, because that is just part of being human being. Is you know, there's some beliefs that you will have that are not exactly they're not exactly the most flawless opinion to have, and that is also going to give room to critical thinking, and more specifically having the conversations that need to be had, instead of just suppressing the conversations that truly need to be had. I like I said, I don't particularly agree with that, or wish it could be different for sure. Um, yeah, and like I said, I want to kind of go back on this point that I already mentioned, but um, truly, not everybody deserves forgiveness when it comes to that, but to not be giving it out at all when it comes to cancellations and things of that sort isn't being realistic with the way humans work truly. And like I said, humans have flaws. Humans are gonna mess up over time, and for certain individuals, they deserve a second chance, and for others, based off of your own character analysis on them, obviously they do not. But like I said, just as my idea earlier that I had mentioned with people being canceled, I feel like also people who were canceled, they feel like that there should be a poll or something to see if that person should be brought back or not. And from there, like I said, make decisions based off of the masses' opinion instead of, like I said, somebody's opinion that or somebody's opinion on somebody that we don't even know who the hell they are, and they're just making the decisions, and we kind of just have to live with it. Like I said, the people should be more actively involved of the changes that happen or the certain cancellations that occur. That is the way that I would personally do that if I were the people who were in control of something. Appreciate it. I appreciate you liking the setup, man. Appreciate liking the setup, man. Give me 1 second. Man, come on now. All right. All right. Give me 1 second. All right. Another thing with people and having their opinions on things like that, right? I feel like it's hard to have. You should never place unrealistic expectations on somebody and their character because not everybody's perfect, and obviously never claim to be perfect. So, like I said, going about their flaws is something that I feel like people should revisit. I truly do not believe that they're going about that the best way that they possibly can. And with that being said, a lot of people need to be a little bit more forgiving on social media instead of just being absolutely ruthless. People are ruthless on social media. You guys know how it is, right? Y'all watching this, y'all know how it is, man. People are absolutely ruthless, um, and they will absolutely shred you to pieces if they disagree with you, which is that is free speech to an extent, but I do believe people should be a little bit more forgiving and not exactly place super high expectations on somebody who is flawed just like that they are. So that is my opinion. So yeah, I've kind of mentioned the majority of the points that I would like to make today on cancel culture. So if you have your own opinion, I want to know your guys' opinion specifically on cancel culture. How do you think people should go about canceling people, or rather, should they even cancel people at all? Right. I want to know your guys' take because, like I said, I want to have a better conversation and getting people involved for sure. All right, and then I'll reiterate my points here soon, and get new insight on people's opinions. Give me 1 second though. Along with that, right? Me on this platform, this is something that I've mentioned a few times on a few different podcasts, but I do believe that ideas should be challenged, right? I'm not going to say the right thing always, right? And like I said, if you're a person that disagrees with some of the things that I have to say, that's completely fine. I'm willing to have the confrontation or whatever you would like to call it, the argument or the discussion about our opinions, right? I'm more than fine with having those, but the people that shun those certain things and try to only have a very set way of thinking, I feel like that is also not ideal when it comes to conversation and when it comes to just developing opinions and just developing society in general. So, like I said, if there's ever a point you disagree with that I make, whether it's on a short or whether it's on a podcast, let me know. Let me know. I'm willing to have the discussion because I feel like it can benefit the both of us. So, yeah. Give me 1 second. All right. See, I'm going to reiterate some points just in case you guys are just now watching. So, the things I want to mention when it comes to my thoughts on cancel culture, right, is to observe the previous cancellations and how they've worked. Everybody's cancellation who did get canceled, it kind of goes a different way. But I want you to observe specifically how they work, because I feel like that is very, very important when it comes to future cancellations and future situations where people might encounter the same situation. Specifically, why did they get canceled? Right? Analyze that very, very thoroughly, and truly evaluate whether that person, being canceled is actually just. Because I personally see people being canceled for reasons that are not thoroughly explained. Truly not thoroughly explained, or truly not thought out all the way. Um, that is just the way that I see it personally. But yeah, along with that, understanding that people are in a constant state of change and people are constantly evolving all the time, and that is completely okay because that is the human experience. Understanding that there's going to be moments in time where people have made mistakes in the past, but that is nothing more than just a mistake in the past, and letting them reemerge into their new identity without those preconceived notions that have been placed on them because of a mistake that they made in the past. Right? I feel like there are some mistakes that people make that truly should never leave their identity, but there's also other mistakes, smaller mistakes, that truly should be wiped away from the identity that people are trying to uphold now. And people are very, very critical, like I had mentioned earlier, very, very ruthless. But accepting it as a fellow friend instead of just another person on somebody you'll never see, right? I feel like seeing that a slightly different way can definitely be in your best benefit when it comes to not only giving that forgiveness, but also hopefully getting that forgiveness as well, right? All right, yeah. And another question I want you guys to answer in the comments as well. Do you think cancel culture will be a thing of the future? Do you truly think that this is going to be a thing that can potentially happen without people, having an entire negative reaction towards social media's decision on canceling somebody? I personally believe that this is something that is going to go away. I do believe that the entire idea of cancel culture in itself was a flawed way to go about conversation, right? And with that being said, I do believe that eventually, hopefully, this is hopeful wishing, and this is hopeful. Yeah, this is hopeful wishing, and hopefully some analytical skills as well. But I do believe that um, it will be a thing of the past, right? I feel like there's a lot of people who are like me who have the same kind of opinions. Now they don't express it as thoroughly as I do, but they have the same base of opinions when it comes to cancel culture. And I do believe that if somebody gets canceled again without a thorough explanation behind it, or without the people's vote, I do believe there's going to be people that fight back against that, because truly that needs to be fought back against. But yeah, I do think that it hopefully will be something of the past. I think it will go away because not everybody will be able to stop powerful human beings. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Being being on many platforms is going to help anyways when it comes to anything. So that is how you're going to be uncancelable, right? Yeah, with that as well, right? So a point that I made earlier is there are people who are uncancelable, right? Specifically, who are those people, and what do they do that makes them uncancelable, right? The people that I seen that I view to be uncancelable are people like Jordan Peterson, right? People who have such a strong fan base that it doesn't matter. I won't say it doesn't matter what they say, but understanding the character that that person is. Another person would be like Dave Chappelle, or like Joe Rogan, or yeah, those are the people that I use for the example. Obviously, there's more people than that, but understanding that people know their character, and like I mentioned, they have a strong fan base. And with that being said, it's going to be hard to cancel somebody who. It's hard to cancel somebody when a lot of people know their true intention as a human being, right? Their true purpose as a human being. It's hard to cancel somebody like that, especially when it's very, very genuine and purposeful. But yeah, with that being said, go about certain ways. Let's just say you're a person who is speaking on similar things that I'm speaking about, right? And you are not the most careful about the things that you do say. You need to think about the ways to avoid getting canceled, right? Like KJ had mentioned, you get on multiple platforms. Along with that, cultivate a strong fan base, or a group of supporters, right? And also look at the people and observe them very, very closely, of the people who cannot be canceled. This is something that you should do as well. Um, yeah, and I just hate people not being able to express themselves and not being able to have an opinion, and suppressing potential conversation that can be had. I feel like that is very, very hindering to society as a whole. And yeah, that is just my point of view. And these types of humans will tell the real truth, which others will believe. And yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. So, all right. Yeah, and with cancellations in general, right? I believe the people, like I said, I haven't heard anybody say this. I do believe the people should have a say on who should be canceled and who should not be canceled. It should be a poll or something. That's something that I would do. And hopefully with real people, because with doing things like that, it would be kind of hard to do it with just real people, because there's the bots and shit like that that can be completely manipulating the poll. But if we can get some type of way where we can get real human beings that aren't bots to vote on something as big as somebody being canceled or not, I feel like that's going to truly be in the best interest of society if they do go about um, that type of situation the same way that I had mentioned. But that's the way that I would personally do it if I was in control of that. But yeah, that's just my view. Yeah, and I would also say specifically we should be more. We should all know specifically why people get canceled, um, the labels that are placed on them, and we should also know what to avoid to get canceled. Right? What are things? What are true set things that need to be avoided in order to avoid a cancellation altogether? Right? Social media platforms, I do not believe they are clear enough with that message. Um, Offending people is not enough, right? If I'm gonna be honest with you, right? Offending people is not enough because a lot of people can have a lot of different opinions and offend a lot of people, but truly, still have the best interest in mind within society. So people's feelings are always going to get hurt, right? Like I had mentioned earlier, and this is one of my favorite sayings that I've ever said is, you cannot have an opinion and say the right thing always, right? Not everybody's gonna agree with you, and that is just life. That is okay. And with that being said, like I said, people getting offended over what somebody says or how they say it is not enough to cancel somebody, right? Do their ideas truly have a hindering effect to society? Yes or no? And if that's a no, then that person should still be on, right? Regardless of who it is, whether I agree with this person or disagree with this person, if they're not truly negative and affecting people right then and there, then I truly believe that it's not a good enough reason to cancel somebody. Um, with that being said, like I said, who decides cancellations in general, right? Who the fuck actually does? I don't know. I truly do not know. I don't know if you guys know who's truly in charge of that. But their motives, at the very least, should be observed. That's for sure. And their, let's just say, plan should be observed as well. All right. Yeah. And another thing, another thing I want to mention as well is right, and this is something that I've already mentioned, kind of, but it's interesting to observe how the media controls certain narratives about people and things that are negative about a person or an allegation about a person gets more coverage than, let's just say, the actual truth that comes out, right? Or something that's going against that. I feel like that gets less views, less clicks, less um, exposure, true exposure. And yeah, I feel like that should be something that people analyze as well, right? When it comes to, let's just say there's a certain narrative floating around about a certain person, right? Trying to hear both sides it should be something that you should look out for instead of just believing one side and just taking and running with it. Understand both sides, hear out both sides, and then make your opinion, make your true opinion based off of the evidence that you can analyze, right? Critical thinking, very very important nowadays, but yet not enough people are doing it. Simple as that. I made a podcast on this, so if you are a person who just believes everything that they're told and you need some guidance, I have a podcast. It's How to Think Critically. Just tapping with that for sure. I can't remember what episode it is, but tapping with that. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Appreciate for that. By. Give me 1 second. Yeah, and yeah, one of the things I want to kind of wrap it up with is it sucks that ideas are being suppressed. People's true, genuine characters are being suppressed because of the way that they will be perceived by who? By somebody. I do believe that there's not enough genuine people who genuinely are giving their opinions and who are willing to have it be challenged in general, right? Because of the negative backlash that they might encounter, and I do believe that is very very hindering to you know the makeup of the world in general, right? Because you might be agreeing with the narrative that you don't exactly agree with, but yet people seeing you agree with that same narrative is going to lead to I would say almost brainwash society because let's just say, for example, one of the recent, let's just say supporting somebody who got canceled. Let's just say that, for example, right? Let's just say you're a person who, is in full support of that person who got canceled, but you don't want to say that because you're afraid of what people will think about you, right? So now you kind of spin the narrative saying, "Hey, well, I don't really like that person anyways," even though you know damn well you do like that person, right? You're changing reality. You're literally changing reality. You're changing people's perceptions of reality in real time, and I think that's something that people should observe as well, very very closely. And I do believe that people should truly be more genuine. Honestly, when it comes to their social media platform, they need to be more transparent. They need to be more um, expressive, and truly do not believe in suppression. Because if you suppress the way you truly are, people, the real people can see that shit. In my opinion, that's just the way that I think of it, though. But yeah, at the very least, let's just say you have an opinion that isn't exactly agreed with by a lot of people. At the very least, you'll be able to, learn something from that. And at the very least, people who disagree with you will also be able to learn from something from that experience as well when it comes to going about expressing somebody's opinions or view on something. So there's still lessons to be had instead of just not having the discussion at all. All right. Yeah, another thing with people who, have social media platforms and things like that, right? You cannot have unrealistic expectations placed on top of that person. They cannot always move with 100% flawlessness, right? That's not realistic. That's not how humans work, right? And I do believe that there's people who came out, who are bigger people, and they are facing some type of cancellation because of something that they said in the past or whatever it is, and understand truly that people are not perfect. People should be forgiven for certain situations, and they never claim to be perfect. And of course, if they do something that deserves judgment, then that's just the way it is. But at the same time, to place unrealistic expectations on somebody who's exactly human is not the best way to go about life in general, because people are going to make mistakes, people are going to slip up, and just as you would like somebody to accept you for your you being human, right? You should accept other people for being human as well, right? All right, give me 1 second, fellas. Like I said, I'm gonna wrap it up here in a minute. I want to know your guys' final thoughts on cancellation and cancel culture. Do you believe that it should exist? If not, let me know why. If you do believe it should exist, let me know. But yeah, I've given y'all the game. Hopefully y'all like it, man. Like I said, if you're new, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Also follow me on TikTok, Life of a Champ Podcast on TikTok as well. Also make sure you go ahead and leave a like on my YouTube Shorts as I post 20 something a week. So tap in with that for sure. Also, like I had mentioned, just in case I get canceled, right? And you want a platform that is a little bit more, for free speech. Follow me on Rumble as well. I'm on Rumble. It's just same thing, Life of a Champ podcast on there as well. Also, all my content that I post on YouTube or anywhere else will be on there as well. So tap in with that for sure. But yeah, that's what I got to say. Like I said, I'll give y'all a few minutes to see if your guys' point of views, and after that, I'll go ahead and wrap it up, man. Like I said, I appreciate everyone for stopping by for sure. If you like us, like I said, if you're new, make sure you go and leave a follow, whether it's on Twitch or on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. But if it's on Twitch, make sure you go and leave a follow for sure. But yeah, I do believe when it comes to cancel culture, when it comes to anything in general, right? You should not be super, super firm on your idea unless you've given it a lot of thought, right? A lot of people have not given it enough thought when it comes to, cancel culture in general. And or like I said, big things within society and how they will change the reality that people see. Um, yeah, and I feel like with that being said, do not believe everything you're told, right? Take I would say take everything with a grain of salt, but understand when somebody's acting genuine, and understand when you need to take somebody's opinion, and also take in both sides to fully get the most developed opinion you possibly can, right? That kind of goes back to the podcast that I made on how to think critically. But I feel like a lot of people nowadays are truly not, you know and with that being said, I'm trying to give you out a game. I already have subscribed just now. I appreciate that. But other than that, I'll be having another podcast on Thursday. I go live every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 o'clock my time, or 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So tap in with that for sure. Also, if there's a specific topic that you want me to talk about on a future podcast, make sure you go ahead and leave it in the comments, whether it's in the live comments or in the comments after the video. tap in with that for sure. Also, if you're a person watching this, rewatching this, make sure and leave a like as well. Yeah, I agree with that for sure. I think that person said, I think everybody comes across the problem of free speech nowadays. To be honest, yeah, for sure. Um, like I said, there's a lot of gray area. There's truly a lot of gray area surrounding that, and it needs to be thoroughly analyzed and thoroughly talked about. Right, conversations need to be had when it comes to certain things like that, because, like I said, suppressing one side of the narrative isn't the way to go. Right, that's just mind control. So we need to have both. We need to have both point of views, and it's as simple as that. I appreciate your recognition with the conversation. I appreciate that very much. But other than that, fellas, like I said, I'll go ahead and end off here in about 2 minutes. Appreciate everyone stopping by. All right. Also, we're 10 days in the new year. Takeover 23, fellas. You already know what time it is, man. You already know what time it is. Takeover 23. This is a new year, so make sure you're doing what you need to do. And if you're a person who's still trying to figure out this new year and what you want to do, I also have a podcast, like maybe like 2 or 3 podcasts ago, specifically going over the new year and how you should approach the new year and things that you should do when it comes to approaching a new year. So if you need any help or guidance with that, I do have that available as well. Other than that, fellas, this was the Life of a Champ podcast, episode number 92, 8 away from 100. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, this was just talking about cancel culture and kind of giving you my thoughts on it specifically. Like I said, if you disagree, leave it in the comments. I'm more than happy to have the conversation. But other than that, fellas, like I said, I'm going to be live on Thursday as well. And yeah, it's just like that, fellas. Y'all have a good rest of your nights. And one thing before I go, I got to give y'all the motto, man. The motto. Fellas, out here, man, we don't just work around here, man. We outwork. So I make sure y'all working these motherfuckers every single day. And it's as simple as that. Y'all have a good night.